This is the story of the Old Brick, a highly visible abandoned old home located on Highway 25 in Shadeland, Indiana. Jerome Loser purchased this abandoned brick home on December 30th, 1998. What moved you to buy this place?
I have what you call an itch.
You've wanted to buy this place for some time?
Yes. I'd say back in the late 60s. It always attracted me.
What attracted you about it?
The structure of it, the brick, just the overall look of it. It just pleased me when I looked at it. It's really an interesting old house.
There's a house on a hill and it stands alone, where it stood 200 years. Some bricks have fallen, but no one comes calling on the ones who still walk there.
Some stonework there. And then you got metal.
That's a metal cast. Now, why would they have? They had a big fireplace in here, and I think this might have been set up for the maid quarters or extra health quarters. And see how thick this wall is? See, this is the secret of it. These walls are so thick. Now, you'll have this a little untidy here, but it won't take about 5 minutes, an hour to fix stuff.
Dilapidated, overgrown, and filled with tons of debris, this once grand home suffered not only decay from the hands of time, but vandals had been picking at its distinctive ornamentation for years. When he looked at the old house, Jerome saw not only the ruins, but he also saw a diamond in the rough. To him, the old brick house was a jewel for what it once was, and for what it might still become.
This winter there, you'd be surprised what this is going to look like after I get the trash out of here.
Guided by the inherited principles of patience and hard work, this 75-year-old man attempts to stop this Civil War-era Italianate brick home from decaying into history. This program explores the history of the old brick house and follows Jerome through his preservation effort as his vision of the old brick comes into focus for all to see.
Old trees huddle there with their silent shade, but whisper when night winds blow. They share the secrets that none among the living can know. They know.
These two dormers, that's the highlight of this part here that's been extended out. It gives that the two-level appearance. See that old window? That's really neat. This is really going to be interesting through here.
Old dreams walk these stairs and old memories light the lamp that floats on down the hall. Old habits and old ways live on almost unchanged, and what is past shall pass from us all.
This is the main attraction right through here. This room, the stairway. The doors, okay, don't look that bad.
There's a face before a window that stares into the night. There's a heart inside this home, and there
Little
forever
cabinet doors
it shall stay
right there.
in some long forgotten day. But those who walk here always walk alone.
Moving in, I would estimate in about 3 weeks. Kind of amazing how it's designed.
There's a house on a hill and it stands stood 200 years. Some bricks have fallen, but no one comes calling on the ones who still walk there.
I love it. I just can't hardly go to bed at night thinking about getting over here and getting it done. And all I need is somebody that's about as energetic as I am with more muscle.
Jerome Loser was born in Elwood, Indiana. The youngest of 6 sons, Jerome left high school during World War II to join the Navy when he was 17 years old. He worked on merchant marine ships in the Navy's Armed Guard near the end of the war. After the war, Jerome went to work for the telephone company and met his wife, Mary Kramer. In 1957, they moved from Elwood to Lafayette. Jerome retired from the telephone company in 1992. Since that time, he has bought, remodeled, and sold over 10 houses in and around Lafayette. He also helped his daughter Karen and her husband turn an old 1870s brick church in Shadeland into a quilt shop. Seeing him do this work at his age amazes people, but I suppose you could say it comes to Jerome naturally. 5 generations of Losers have been builders. Jerome's great-grandfather Daniel Loser was listed as a carpenter in an 1882 Cass County business directory. His grandfather Charles F. Loser was a carpenter in Elwood at the first tin mill in the United States. Jerome's father Clyde, or Pop as he was called, was also a carpenter. At 78, Pop designed and helped build Mary and Jerome Loser's house in Tippecanoe County. Pop, Jerome, and Jerome's 4 brothers spent 6 months building the house. The house is still home to Mary and Jerome Loser, who just celebrated their 57th wedding anniversary. In 1964, the Lafayette Journal and Courier printed an article about the house and the 80-year-old man who designed and helped build it. Pop was quoted as saying, "You know, most families seem to kind of fall apart with the children going their own ways, but now we Losers, we hang together like a bunch of link sausages." That seems to be true for this generation of Losers too. Mary and Jerome have 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. 2 of the boys, David and Gary, are carpenters. Both have been helping Jerome with the old brick house. Gary lives in Colorado where he builds houses, including this 3-story log home he built for himself. Gary helped Jerome clear out the trees and the tons of junk that was in and around the brick house. His vacation visits to Indiana were often spent helping his father with the brick house.
I think it's a good thing. It might be a little too much, but he'll get it to where he thinks it's where he's put enough time into it, and then pass the baton to someone else. And so I think it's a good thing where he keeps you busy and keeps his, you rest, so it keeps his health good.
David, who helped Gary with the design of his house in Colorado, lives next door to Jerome and Mary in a house he built with his father's help. David has been involved in all the serious reconstruction that's taken place on the old brick.
I've done a lot of jobs around town, but some of them I remember and some I don't, and this will definitely remember this for sure.
Most all of Jerome's family would end up helping in some way with the old brick.
I think it's the challenge of it he likes, and the motivation it takes to take on a project like that, and I think it's just a great thing. And I always heard the time where he said that was the last project. Out of all the projects he's had, I think that's been the biggest one, and I think he's made the biggest accomplishment for what he's had to work with.
I thought he was crazy, absolutely crazy. It was loaded with junk. It was like an indoor landfill, and beds and refrigerators and tires and junk. I was just the grunt work. I was the grunt labor. I had the skills to clean up garbage, pull up garbage, dig garbage. Durbus, as he would call it. He'd call it Durbus. I was the Durbus queen. I could only do Durbus work.
Empty since the early 70s, the roof and floors had nearly disintegrated. Trespassers and scavengers had taken anything of value inside the house. Even after Jerome bought the place, the carved limestone scroll work on the steps of the entrance to the house had been stolen. Included in the purchase was the 2.5 acres of land surrounding the house, but sometime earlier a half-acre plot of land fronting the house had been sold off. The house trailer on the site was in a bad state of repair, and the property had become quite an eyesore.
I had told him, no point. I wasn't going to go over there till either the trailer was gone or he had possession of it, because there wasn't no point doing anything to it then.
After nearly 2 years of negotiations, Jerome obtained the half-acre on May 21, 2001. Immediately after assuming the property, he began to haul stuff away and clean things up around the trailer.
We kind of cleaned it up and make it presentable so we could store things in it I'll need to repair the old house. When we had the backhoe and some of the equipment to be able to move things out, we had to take the trees out the perimeter of the house so we could get around. So we cleared out all the junk. On the outside, I'd say 15 to 20 pickup loads to the transfer station in Lafayette. And probably the heavy metals and stuff, we probably took 5 or 6 big loads, tons of that stuff in. Old farm stuff, rims and solid steel and so forth, that was taken in. We mostly had to clear out all the washing machine, old deep freezes, several, 3 or 4 refrigerators, old metal bed things, rusted thing, and part of the structure had fallen into the basement. Everything was falling into the basement.
Collecting and piecing together the history of this house has been like working a jigsaw puzzle, with many odd-shaped pieces that fit together correctly somewhere. Like any old abandoned home, there are many stories associated with the old brick. Stories about the people who occupied this house and the lives touched by this property are coming forth, and the historical puzzle for the old brick house has begun to take form. Family friend Betty Reed is the great-great-granddaughter of the person who bought the land where the brick house was built.
This is a land grant.
In addition to bringing the original land grant for the old brick property to dinner at a Lafayette restaurant, Betty provided details on her family's history and their migration to Tippecanoe County.
This is the people in the old brick. They build it. And do you notice they don't smile? They never smiled in those days. I was surprised to think that one article here says that they were wealthy, because I always felt it was because they worked so hard they looked so sad, but I don't know.
In 1954, Betty and Bernard Reed moved into the frame house next door. This picture was taken then. According to Betty and Bernard, during this time, the old brick was a house of prostitution.
Red light, I call it red light. Yeah. But I don't know if it had a red light or not. I never knew, but I don't think I ever met her.
No, you didn't. I know you didn't.
Lena Carlson is a volunteer at the Historical Association. Her longtime fascination with old houses includes the old brick. Lena has created a web page with pictures of the brick house and recently wrote an article about the house in the Lafayette paper.
I've been seeing this house every couple of years since I was really small, and I, even when it's just in absolute horrible condition with the terrible mobile home that was sitting in front of it, I still thought it was just the most gorgeous building.
Sandy Yemen saw Lena's newspaper article and was excited to see the house where her mother was born and spent the happiest days of her life.
I've been watching this house, and I kept hoping that somebody wouldn't let the walls cave in and let it go, because it's got so much history. It's got a lot of my family in it.
Fascination with the old brick house goes all the way back to the 1870s, when someone felt the house was significant enough to be included in an 1878 atlas of Tippecanoe County. Jerome's family purchased this atlas at the Tippecanoe County Historical Association and presented it to him on Father's Day of 2001.
That's the brick house.
That's a brick house.
This is you as Keen, and you're holding your staff, which is the golf club, and your...
You did this drawing all by yourself?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, okay. Atlas map, Tippecanoe County, in the year 1878. 1878. This corresponds to what? Where's the ruby at? Here?
Yes, that's a ruby.
Okay.
What it looks like, and this is, I guess, is the diamond.
Okay.
The barn.
And we're going to make it look just like that.
The architectural style of the house is Italianate. Italianate was one of the most prevalent Victorian-era housing styles from the mid to late 1800s. Popularized by the 19th century pattern books of landscape architect Andrew Jackson Downing, the Italian style became so indigenous, for a while it was simply called the American style. The development of cast iron and pressed metal technology made producing decorative elements like the brackets and the cornices more efficient. A vernacular style of architecture, Italianate was suitable for many different building materials and budgets. Lafayette and the surrounding area have several Italianate homes built during this time period. Homes in the Italianate architectural style usually have a hipped roof. They all have wide overhanging eaves supported by oversized decorative brackets made to look as if they're supporting nearly flat roofs. Some of them have a tower or a cupola. They are almost always at least 2 stories tall, with tall, narrow windows that are arched or rounded, often with molded window caps. The old brick house contains many of these features.
Down this gravel road, there's a farm we used to own. The grass there's overgrown, I walk it back alone. Leaves fall like the years, and all these autumns laid to rest. My mother's cotton dress, my father's cigarettes. The walk was worn then by laughter in a summer storm. Now overgrown, still footsteps fall and lead me on and on. Weeds grow high through fields that I would run through with my dog, past the creek and hollow log, chasing dragonflies and frogs. Dinner's hot, have I forgotten how these shadows slip away? Ends of endless summer days, this path will take you back that way. The walk was worn then by laughter in a summer storm. Now overgrown, still footsteps fall and lead me on and on. The house is near, I know, but fear the changes it may show. Burning sun and crushing snows, blistered pane, roof sagging low. One last turn past Christmas ferns and shady climbing trees. My brothers climbed with me, I climb once more to see. The walk was worn then by laughter in a summer storm. Now overgrown, still footsteps fall and lead me on and on. The branches bend as I ascend, the hand holds old and true, gently swaying towards the view, the only home I really knew. And there, between the branches and the leaves that softly fall, we haven't changed at all. The walk was worn then by laughter in a summer storm. Now overgrown, still footsteps fall and lead me on.
Kathy, I want to welcome you to our new home.
Thank you.
Your Majesty, please.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Open the gate, open the gate, open the gate. This is the original structure. Then they added on, what year, this backside. I don't know. Now we can get up the steps, and we'll skip this step right here. Okay. And up this one. These are solid enough we can walk on. This is not too bad right in here. See there's a big double beam that supported those roof rafters in the middle. It's going to be interesting to get that one down. That's probably the old original glass right there in that transom. When you can spread the weight out over several of them, it's not that bad. Right here's one to give away. And I was going along here checking these out, see? See, bust them loose. And so I took a bigger bar and I stretched myself out through here like this. And so I took a long arm. I got rid of the short one I was doing this with. So I took this long 8-footer and went like that to test it. That gave away and the bar took me right down there. I probably landed on my chest and face. Now if I'd have kept this like this, like I had been doing like this, going down like this, but I took it like this, that was a mistake. See how that rafter gave away? It was similar to that. It gave away, and I just went. How my fat body got through here, I don't know. Because this is still covered with stuff about this high. So the idea is to take all of Durbus out, put the floor joist in the lower level, and put a floor on that, put the floor joist in here and put a floor on it, then continue to make it a lot safer. So when we fall, we don't have to fall so far. If you do fall. This is the ornate plaster they used in the ceiling. This part must have come from this southwest corner. Now on the inside, we got one corner left that shows how this plaster was put up there and was hand molded. Then this rope type beading went all the way around the perimeter of the ceiling, out about 2 feet. And you can see how thick the plaster was here. Then they molded this on top of the plaster. So as we're pulling the Durbus and junk out, we try to save some of these. To maybe put it back like it was one room. Now, how many rooms had this, I don't know. But it's kind of fun to dig around in this, and just like the girls that found an old dish and trying to wonder how old it is. Yay! We saved the old ink well. Remember when they had ink wells?
Ink well. There's another one over there too.
Oh, good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just wash that. Not a big deal.
They give it to the dogs.
Oh, they love it. Wash it up for
Yeah.
Tucker.
All right. And this is Deary's idea. The highlight is this part. He really likes that. The arches. Everybody seems like it. This is the one we couldn't get into before. See? You couldn't get from this basement to the other basement without going up the steps. Right. And out there and back down. So this was the added on type. So I would say this basement is probably not as deep as the other basement. And we dug down to see about the floor. And it's down here about 3 feet under this. So that'd make it about probably 6-foot basement. You can see how even when they added this other part on, they kept with the foundation, the native rock foundation. See how they did it?
When I first got involved with it, was cleaning out the basement after Gary and Dad had cleaned out all the major appliances and stuff that was in the way. So that was my first experience with it, is bucking out all the debris from the basement.
We couldn't get a conveyor, so we took out all the dirt. We leveled that down. We carried it out in 5-gallon buckets. Imagine we carried out, I don't know, 2 hard days' worth of work, 5-gallon buckets to get through. We didn't have a choice. And so then that was leveled off where you could walk underneath it. Then we took out all the old floor joists. That would be in the main kitchen part. Took the floor joist out. Then we replaced those floor joists. Then we put a floor on, a subfloor. Then we went to the next story. I've had so many comments that people said, gosh, it just shocks them that it's so bad. It doesn't bother me a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind looking in there and see, well, they put a board in there for a beam, see? And is it rotten? I just look at it that way. I don't look at it as it's falling down.
You know, we've had a pretty good safety record despite our the way we do things. I mean, it's just like walking in a cow pasture. You got to look down all the time, you know, or you're going to step in a pie, so.
It's pretty hard to find somebody that can read your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you have to have somebody that, watch where you're stepping, we got to do that because I'm thinking ahead. We don't want to put that in now because we're going to have to take it out and repair something else. That's why I don't have too much help. I don't want to be too anxious. I come over to myself, I just have to get along with myself, and that's really bad enough. So I kind of like to do it myself, a lot of the stuff. Then I'll stack it up, push it aside, then when somebody comes over, it's obvious what to do. Just maneuver it around and pile it up, and somebody wants to go over and help, we're going to do this. We got something.
Yeah.
It's simple. Bring your golf clubs. The 4 joists in the second story upstairs. And that's, 18 footers. Put them in the old way in that brick. David probably is more like my dad, where he knows in the next hour where his feet's going to be, and on his hands is going to be, and what he needs to do. Now see, and I play it by the seat of my pants or whatever you want to call it. I have to be inspired to do things, and all of a sudden, if I lose my inspiration or drive, I go do something else. David is a good influence, and so I've always tried to maneuver him over here. And what he does so well that you don't have to do it again, and it doesn't cause any future problems. He just has a unique approach to it. He does it, and he likes to pace himself. And so as we done the walls and the floor joists and the flooring, then we went on up, and that was mostly his planning to go ahead and have a safe, sturdy, and permanent type situation and build on that. And he's had a lot of experience with building, And I never was a carpenter or a craftsman like that, or a brick mason or anything, but I could do it. But I could never stay on it to acquire the type of skill he had. Got started. That's about it. 1/1000th done.
The land where the brick house is located is called the Wea Plains because before the settlement of white man in this area, the Weatnan or Wea Indians hunted and farmed the plains. Every fall, the Wea would burn the grasslands to prevent any trees and brush from growing there. Across the Wabash River from this fertile prairie land is Fort Weatnan. Established in 1717 by French colonizing forces, Fort Weatnan flourished from 1720 to 1760. The French and the Wea existed peacefully in the Wabash Valley during this time. Each fall, the Tippecanoe County Historical Association brings this peaceful era of history back to life at the Feast of the Hunter's Moon. Thousands of participants and spectators gather to recapture this most colorful period of our country's history. The Wea Indians continued to live in settlements along the Wabash River on the Wea Plains through the first part of the 19th century. But after several treaties with the United States government, the Wea moved west and no longer lived on the Wea Plains when Tippecanoe County was established in 1826. The property where the old brick would be built was purchased shortly after that time. The abstract for the property shows the original land grant owner was Jacob D. Lutz from Ohio.
Jacob D. is the one who bought the land, right. He's the one that had the land grant. He's the one who rode his horse over to Crawfordsville. He never even saw the land. Pickaway County, that's where they lived. They moved from Pennsylvania to Ohio in 1803.
Jacob DeMuth Lutz was a judge from Pickaway County, Ohio. This veteran of the War of 1812 traveled to Crawfordsville, Indiana in 1830 to purchase the original land patents for several parcels of farmland in the Wea Plains.
He bought the land as an investment for his sons because they had a very large family, I think maybe 10 children. And as each son got married, he gave them the land so that they could come over here and start farming. They were all farmers.
Jesse B. Lutz was the first son to leave Ohio for Indiana.
Jesse B. was the oldest, but he didn't keep his farm. And he moved to West Lafayette. He was a real good friend of John Purdue's.
In 1855, Jesse B. Lutz surveyed and converted into lots the town of Kingston. Kingston, built on land mostly owned by Jesse B. Lutz, was the first settlement in what is now the city of West Lafayette. Jesse B. Lutz's farm and his wife's family farm would eventually become part of Purdue University.
There's Lutz Street in West Lafayette. It was named for Jesse. Some of the property he owned is a corner of where they built Morton School, which is West Lafayette grade school. And he left it to the city with the stipulation it was to be used for education.
Jesse B. Lutz apparently never used the land his father had purchased in 1830, but several of his brothers did.
Nelson and My grandfather, Isaac B., and Edmund only stayed for a few years, and he sold it and moved to Kansas City. But the other three brothers, Samuel, Nelson, and Isaac, all settled and were farmers in the area. In Union Township, or it used to be Wayne when they did it.
In 1852, over 20 years after the land purchase, Jacob D. Lutz transferred ownership of the land where the brick house would be built to his son, Isaac B. Lutz. Isaac had married Lydia Morris that year and moved to the Indiana prairie land with his new bride. Here their family grew and prospered. The 1860 census lists 3 children, a Swedish farm laborer, and a servant living with the Lutz family. They were all living in this frame house that still stands today. Obviously needing more space, they built the magnificent brick home that is the subject of this program sometime during or just after the Civil War.
The house was built after the Civil War, which would have been 1865-66. So my grandfather was born in 1860, and if you get the magnifying glass, it's kind of hard out to see, but I felt like the 5 children are in this picture. So if that's the case, then it was probably in 1870 or so that the picture was taken. Now it might have been late 1860, but, and there's 2 women standing on the front porch. I have no idea who they are. Did you see this, Jerome, that Mary Callahan, she's a daughter of one of the brothers, and she feels that, she said our house was worth, was built for $10,000.
Our house?
The old brick, the old brick.
We're going to take that window out and rebuild that window. So we're putting a plate in. Then that's the top plate for the rafter that's set on. Then there's a window plate that we're putting in there.
The rafters will sit right here on this plate.
Right. Roof rafter is set on that. Then that bottom plate right there, that'll be the frame, rough end for the window. Do you think you'd like this brickwork? Kind of interesting, isn't it? You have to do about everything. Soft homemade brick. Probably here the neighbors. I always noticed older houses. And of course, this house here, I'd noticed years ago when I'd come by it to work. And it just kept getting worse and worse. Of course, I'd inquired about it, and I didn't get too many good answers at that time about it, so I just forgot about it. But I always liked the older homes. I stopped here, and my ego was hurt when I tried to buy it from the guy that was here that owned it. And he wasn't very pleasant to talk to. And so I think in the back of my mind, when it came up for sale, this spurred me on, I think. And I didn't even have to look at it. I was going to buy it because I could remember what it looked like before. And I'd already made up my mind that I was going to buy it before I even talked to the real estate people. I thought about that, and then I had the time, and so I thought, well, why not try it? And so I had no problem. I've never been sorry about it. It really had a lot of meaning to somebody, to people, and I just see something that's really different than most of the things. Anybody that goes through an addition and they see all these houses, they're not exactly alike, but they look alike. Even in a run-down condition like this it's still appealing. It's different. See? Now, if this was in a new addition, like some of the homes that's built in some of these 200 house additions, and they're all fine homes, like $300,000 or $400,000. And this house was in this addition, just like it is, and nobody was going to buy it. I would probably buy it over the price of a new one because it appeals to. Now, why I'm that way, I don't know. And I think a lot of people are that way. That's why people stop and want to look at it.
Gotta have a little bit cleaning up to do.
There's a little delay here, I think.
A lot of cleaning up to do.
You want to save that board, Mary? What do you think about it? You think it's all right?
Did you fall through that one?
Patty Broomsma is an archivist at the Tippecanoe County Historical Association. Her son wanted to buy the house without knowing there were connections to the house on both sides of his family.
A few years ago, my son came to me, his name's Brad, and he's like, Mom, I saw this house and I want you to go look at it. He's like, I love this house and I want to see if we can get it and restore it. So I went out and with him and we went through it and I'm like, oh Brad, this is really bad. I was talking to my mother and I told her that Brad had fallen in love with this house and we'd gone out to look at it and what bad shape it was in. And then she was talking to my uncle, her brother, and was telling him about that, and he's like, well, you know, our grandfather lived in that house. And so that made it more endearing to us, you know. But we didn't find that out until later. And then on my husband's side of the family, the Lutz had sponsored his grandparents. They were immigrants from Holland, and they came to Lafayette and worked on the Lutz farm.
During the last part of the last century and the early part of this century, a considerable number of Dutch immigrants were sponsored and hired by Mr. Isaac Lutz, a wealthy farmer in the Shadeland-Wea Plains area. So tell me what you're going to be doing today.
The roof decking is going on. Then there'll be tar paper put over that. Then it'll be waterproofed here. The stuff over there, I'm going to clear off, throw it back here. So the remainder of that roofing.
The decking on the south side, where did you get that material from?
Oh, that decking comes from an old barn over in Shadeland. They had it stored in a barn, and they was tearing the barn down. That was all moved over here, and some of the sheeting, the older boards, match the ones that's on there, but it didn't have enough, so we have to put the newer type decking on this side.
Isaac B. Lutz died in 1905.
And this is Isaac B. Lutz's obituary. The man who built the old brick, this is his obituary. And he's buried at Farmers Institute. He and Lydia are both buried at Farmers Institute.
The brick house was inherited by his daughter, Etha Lutz Ratliff.
This is the lady that inherited the house from Isaac B.
In 1911, the property left the Lutz family and was purchased by the Stidhams. Patty Broomsma's great-grandfather's name appears on the abstract.
Anytime you see a document that has one of your ancestors, it's always kind of a heartthrob, you know, to think that these are papers that they had in their possession at one time. And, you know, this is an original, so I know that he had this at one time.
That's right, he handled that.
Right, he handled this. And of course, you know, I knew my great-grandfather. I remember him because he didn't die until 1952. James Lincoln was born here in Indiana. His father was an immigrant, came here in 1863. Mary Stidman is his first wife's sister. And it looks like Charles and Mary had bought this property in 1911, and then they signed it over to James in 1913, so 2 years later. Now, whether or not they may have purchased this with him in mind, because he did have a lot of children, you know, by that time they had about 10 children. My great-grandmother died in 1905 when my grandmother was 15 years old. And then he married the lady who is on this abstract with him. He had 7 children with my great-grandmother, and then he had 8 children with this lady.
James A. was married twice, and Lori, who he referred to as Miss Lori, that was his second marriage. He would call her Miss Lori, and she would refer to him as Mr. Lincoln, almost in a third party. James A. Lincoln is my great-grandfather, and his son Arthur is my grandfather. This is Arthur and Myrtle. They moved here when Myrtle and Arthur got married. And I think this is their wedding day because she's got on her corsage. They had 3 children. James Robert was the oldest. That's the child that was born and was stolen from here by the gypsies. And the gypsies, he got sick and they left him by the water and he died of pneumonia. He was born September 1914 and he died in February of 1915, so he was only a few months old. There were gypsies all over, Mother said. And they literally broke in and stole him out of the house. And this was after the baby died, because this picture is with my mother, Leona, and she was born October 2nd, 1915. Arthur and Myrtle went up to Canada because Arthur thought that'd be a great place to live and work. And they went to find housing and left my mother and Uncle Roger with a lady they called Aunt Gert, which is Gert Hahn. This is a picture of Myrtle with my mother and Roger. When Myrtle died in 1919, they were left with the Hahns because Arthur went back to Canada. They lived here until they were teenagers, and then she said it was the happiest years of her life.
You know, without the pictures that you've got, and without some of the other still type pictures, I would, because I would actually forget what I've done, because I keep waking up with newer things, and I don't really look back too much on it. So, and it's, if you do that, you might get to the point where, well, that's enough. So I don't really think about what's been done. I just think, well, what's next? And that's the game you play.
Yeah.
What's next? And so, but it's nice to get the roof on, stabilized. That way, I got more control of it. I don't have to drive myself. Yeah, it's hard to be able to jump back and forth to what you want, what's really needs to be done, what you want to do, what's really happening, and still be pretty pleasant and enjoy what you have right now around you. It's probably about like a golf game. But I feel like I'm shooting my age.
That's a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah. This was a room. They plastered this. They had a ceiling in it here.
In the basement, you mean?
Yeah.
This was a room?
This was living quarters. Because this is finished. This was plastered and they had a ceiling here. See where the light went?
And this, you think, is a kitchen over here?
Well, I thought this was a kitchen too. Just an apartment type thing down here. Because it had a different arrangement here, see?
And a pretty elaborate fireplace.
This elaborate fireplace. They could come in here because see this stonework right here? This stonework right here, this hasn't been changed for an open. But this has been changed. See the brick? This, normally, if this had been like this when they originally built, they would have used stone there. See? And so, this was an outside door here. And that was an outside door. And it's just, I think it was the way they cooked there.
With the back part of the house stabilized, attention now turned to the front section of the house. The plan here would be the same. Start at the bottom and work your way up. Over 2 feet of dirt and debris had to be removed from the basement. Jerome and his 2 sons-in-laws carried out over 2,000 5-gallon buckets full of what Jerome called dirbus.
I need David, I need you, I need people to come over here so I don't continually dream about this thing. To get something done. Get all this out of here. We got to get these joists up. And they're talking to me right now. Up and away. When I first passed by this one wall, this fireplace, I looked at the fireplace and I thought, well, that's unusual. Then I look again and I say, oh, I didn't notice that the first time. Then I look again and I say, gee, every time I look at it, some newer thought maybe comes. And then you kind of, if you say that talks to you, that might be the case. See? But I think I talk to it maybe because I pay more. I hold my gaze at something a little longer. I just don't glance at it now. I really want to absorb it, or not study it. I just want to. I'm intrigued by it, or I want to get in. I look at the fireplace and I think, gee, I could spend 2 weeks redoing that fireplace and trying to get it just like it was, and then of course I go on and do something else. And it's probably saying hello, if that's what you want to say it's talking to you. So, but any part of the building, it does that to me.
Jerome's work on the old brick house slowed down a bit during 2003 and 2004, but not because he slowed down that much, although he did have surgery on his shoulder. The 1840s farmhouse he owns near his house also needed some work, and a new front porch was put on the house that Jerome, his brothers, and his father built in the early 60s.
If I could just put blinders and see nothing but this, see, I could probably get something done. And or have a singleness of eye, but I got too many other things too. See? But I'm still drawing back to this. See? Then when somebody wants to help me here, I say, oh, I got to take advantage of this. We got to get something done. And so I get hyped up about it. But I've never been sorry I started. I like coming over here. And then when I get home, I don't feel so bad at the place over there. It don't look that bad.
According to the abstract, Jesse Phillips purchased the property in 1922.
When this Mr. Phillips bought it, he had so much trouble with renters that he just decided not to rent the house anymore and just to farm the land. So he rented out the farmland.
After seeing the house deteriorate in the 30s and 40s, Betty Reed's father, Robert Lutz, and her uncle, Ernest Lutz, purchased the house and the family farm in 1946.
Came up for sale, and my dad and his brother bought it because they wanted the farmland to increase the size of our farm. And then he had a chance to, several people came and looked at it, and one of them was a Purdue professor who wanted to restore it. And he offered Dad $5,000 for it, and Dad had looked into having it torn down because he just didn't want it sitting there empty like it was. And it cost him $4,000 to have it torn down, so he decided he'd make $1,000 and sell it. But he was always sorry that he did it afterwards because it kind of deteriorated after that. The lady who had the house with all the other young ladies in it, she restored the staircase. I understood that was what she did. I was never in the house after, when Sheila was there. We were in the house afterwards, but that's the only time.
Well, the yard was always cleaned and
Oh,
mowed.
she mowed. Yeah, she had a beautiful yard. And then when Ray Winkle moved in, he sold it for sod. He stripped the yard and sold it for sod. No. Yes. It had real nice grass there in front, and he sold it for sod.
None of the people interviewed for this program had anything positive to say about the next owners of the house. The Ray Winkles eventually vacated the old brick house and used it for junking old appliances and other large items hauled off by their trucking business. As decades passed, the house sat empty and steadily decayed. In late 2004, David and Gary decided enough time had passed, and the next time Gary was home from Colorado, they would spend as much time as possible trying to get the work done on the front part of the house. This is kind of like a Christmas present to your dad,
Yeah. It's what he needs. I mean, it never happened if David didn't come over and take charge and get some stuff done.
To go over there for a couple hours or a couple days, you don't see much get done because you got to figure out where you left off. So 2 weeks is about the maximum it can pretty much handle it, and then you're fed up with it and you got to get away from it for a while. So we thought we'd get over there a couple weeks and at least get some start on the floors and see how far we go.
Am I a stranger to this place? Have I been gone too long to see a smile upon your face? Well, I could fall apart or just laugh. It feels so good to be home, but still we're standing alone. Give it time, we'll find our love again. As long as there's one star that remembers to shine, I'll remember that you were mine. Don't turn away before we try. Don't give it up, just give it time. Are you the one who filled my heart? Who says it's falling or falling apart? I could hold you now, we're just talking. It's not as bad as it seems. We both know what it needs. Give it time. We'll find our love again. As long as there's one star that remembers to shine, I'll remember that you
16 to Florida. So 32 of these.
before you even try. Don't give it up, just give it time. You know me well, and all the faults I hide from myself, but I'll tell you that I'll try again. If you can say you'll still believe that the dreams you hold are the same as mine.
Where else? Make those in wintertime.
Give it time, we'll find our love again. As long as there's one star that remembers to shine, I'll remember that you are mine. Don't turn away before we even try. Don't give it up, just give it time. A week or two to clear our minds. I know it's rough now, but give it time. Give it time. Give it time.
To provide a safer work environment in the north side of the basement, a huge beam dangling overhead had to be removed. This turned out to be quite a task.
We was worried about all that dangling way up above us, up there about 25 feet. And it's a lot of weight, it's that beam and everything that's attached to it. It was peeling off some brick from the top of the house. So you just never know what's gonna just finally come loose. So it's kind of not worth doing if it's gonna get mangled and killed. It had a big chunk of steel mortared in the chimney itself, so it was pretty secure, although it didn't look it. there's never any plan. You just go over and see what happens, basically. And,
What about being
something
able
to
to
do.
spend all this time with your dad and working on something? You know, some people never get that opportunity to work with their father.
Well, that's their own fault, basically. So, you know, they're not too bright when they don't do something like that, take an opportunity to do that. So yeah, I mean, that's half the part that's a good part of it while we're doing it.
Coming back from Colorado to work at this house, what's that like, Gary?
Oh, it's a good experience. It's enjoyable sometimes. You know, once it's all done, what we're going to do on it, it'll feel good to contribute and help out, because it's just a lot of work. So one person or two people can't get it all done. So it's you know, team effort.
I think he's passed it down to us. We're a little bit silly about what we take on. We don't think about it too much. We just jump in, and yeah, you just have to either sink or swim, really. Do a little at a time, break it down just one little segment at a time, and you know, hours have got their own little segments into minutes and minutes into seconds, so you just gotta look at a second at a time, basically, and then you can handle it somewhat. You don't really boss each other. You just kind of line out what you want to do that day, and you just start in, and just things, you know, just fall into place. You know, so we don't have to babysit each other. That's the main thing. So things go well. It's about 14 feet from the floor to the ceiling. So, you know, it's kind of out of reach for anything you want to push up there from the floor. So either put it on scaffolding or push it up a ladder. As far as the rafters, you know, they're not so bad. You can push them up one at a time. But when you get the plywood, the sheet goods, and the heavy stuff like the shingles, you need to use your head a little bit better.
The only reason we have scaffolds is someone gave it to Dad.
This is the scaffolding that was on the south side, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's starting to rust together, so we have to get it apart.
There's one thing we can't do on these scaffold weldings. Can't go on one end at the same time. See, when I go on this end, you have to counterbalance on that end.
Once we get started on rafters, it'll go pretty quick. The sheeting won't be nothing. We'll have to just layer this whole thing. We only got one good corner to go off on, and that's over there. There's a place we're not. So we'll just do all these ceiling joists,
And then come up with the...
yeah, we'll come up with our lengths on that off of that corner over there, and so we don't want to have to change any more stuff in half. once we got past the ceiling, well, it was time to do the rafters, and best thing was just to rip it all off, start again. And we used a lot of the rafters we tore out for shorter ones, but well, fortunately we had a lot of used material stockpiled, so we didn't have to buy too much new stuff.
Getting the fluke up above the roof line so we can put that copper flashing on it.
What time did you get over here this morning?
Oh, I got over about, let's see, a little after 10. I wanted to get here before you got over there, because I know you'd be coming by here.
How'd you know that? How'd you know I'd drive by here before I went over there?
Well, you can't help yourself. So, just, let's use that mortar up there.
Okay.
You gotta have a 7 inches. 7 inches.
Okay. Looks pretty good.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Highest elevation in Tippecanoe County is just about a mile over here. I forget what it was. We're getting pretty close to it. Off the rain will be all right. I got Kathy clean this up over in this room while we're working over here. I don't think she's going to come along. Hadn't been in great shape. It hadn't started leaking. That roof's got enough material in it to build a national home. Yeah, it has. 16 inches on center. Well, I can get the roof on. I can shave my beard.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So the beard doesn't get shaved till the roof's on?
That's right.
How's it going, Gary?
It's going good. Good to see the roof go on.
Yeah.
This is it.
It's been a wonderful thing watching it come together in terms of the roof and just stabilizing it, seeing them working on it as father and son. It's pretty neat. And then to go inside and see what grandeur the staircase still has and the walls. It's going to be a fine place if somebody does it upright. It's pretty amazing that they were able to get all that junk out of there and to stabilize it and put a roof on. I didn't think they'd ever get it done, especially since it's free labor.
Candy bar and bottle of pop's always been a traditional payment around here, so.
Driving west on Highway 25, it's hard not to be charmed by this old brick house.
Well, I guess it's a source of pride because, you know, nobody's silly enough to conquer something like that or attempt to. So it's, yeah, I mean, when somebody goes by and wonders about it and know that we've took part in that, it's, they're kind of amazed, I guess. So, yeah, it feels good.
Now that everything's getting cleared out and it's getting fixed up, it's just beautiful. So many houses in the Lafayette area are being torn down and destroyed, and I think that's a valuable part of our community's history that's being lost, and you can't get that back.
If it got destroyed, it's canceling the history, and so much history's happened here.
Those who have fallen for this house for whatever reason share Jerome's vision of the old brick.
He's always had a love for those things that are strong in craftsmanship and quality. And so I'm pretty proud of my daddy.
Oh, thank you.
For keeping himself busy in his old age.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a preservationist. And we're going to pickle him and preserve him.
An avid golfer, Jerome has often compared his work on the old brick house to shooting his age in golf, which he considers a true measure of accomplishment. Jerome will be turning 80 soon, and he's determined he'll be shooting his age in golf, and it won't surprise anyone if he does it the next time he plays. Jerome also plans to spend some time in Colorado helping Gary build a new house with a great view of the Continental Divide. So what do you think, Romy?
I think it's a fitting into the roof situation. In phase one. Today I just got the idea, and I talked to David about it, and I said I couldn't figure out where to put it. And David came up with the idea to put it right here over the entrance. Mm-hmm. And that was a high point. I hadn't given it thought. And it feels pretty good to actually top that off with this one phase that I've been trying to get through with the roof and it stabilized. So that's this feels pretty good. Mm-hmm. When I drive by here and I see that just will make me feel good for myself mainly and for the family. They can drive by here and see that, and especially for David too. I could have never done this without David and some of his work ethics, and driving his brothers to do things. Mm-hmm. And so it's been good to get through this part of it.
As Jerome and David top the house with the weather vane, the latest chapter in the story of the old brick comes to an end. What direction the story takes from now on is anybody's guess.
It's just remarkable it just looks good right now to me. For now, it's great. And the future, who knows? We'll give it a shot anyway. We'll give it a try.
You'll see a for sale sign in front of the old brick when you drive by, but Jerome and his family are not interested in selling to anyone who won't continue to save the house they spent 4 years stabilizing. They hope there's a buyer out there who appreciates that a 75-year-old man had a nostalgic vision that a house that had been decaying for decades might somehow live again. Nothing would be more pleasing than to drive by the house in 20 years and remember fondly the hard work, patience, and love this incredible man and his family put into saving this house.
Well, there's a house on a hill and it stands alone, where it stood 200 years. Some bricks have fallen, but no one comes calling on the ones who still walk there.